And that was What Else Was It by Peter Mulvey from his most recent CD, Silver Ladder. And he's going to have his triumphant return to the Wyndham Ballroom coming up real quick, Friday, March 11th. And the spellbinding Pamela Means is opening. Doors are at 8, show starts 8:30. Tickets and more information online at popolomeanspeople.com, or just, head over there to the restaurant in the ballroom. They'll help you out. And I've got the guy himself on the phone.
Hey there.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I love coming to Vermont.
Well, you have kind of a 15-year relationship with Bellows Falls, I understand.
I do, yeah. I used to play Unas, way back in the way back, and I know I opened for Greg Brown at the cinema there, yeah. And I opened for Billy Bragg, and it was a benefit for a guy, I don't know if you guys still hear much about him, Bernie Sanders. That was great.
Are you feeling the burn?
Definitely. I mean, my favorite thing about it, honestly, just speaking as someone who's in his mid-40s, the kids love socialism. Nothing could make me happier than that kids love socialism. That's great. It means the kindergarten lesson of, hey, let's share, seems to have actually sunk in with kids. And that's exciting because they're going to be looking after me in my decrepitude.
And you're out of Milwaukee, which has kind of a history with socialist mayors.
Oh, big time, yeah. We've had 2 or 3. I met the most recent of them, Frank Zeidler. We had, I think it was 50 years of socialist mayors, and they ran excellent, clean government. We've got an excellent lakefront that we owe to them, a public lakefront, and real good institutions. It definitely has fallen on harder times. We're having one of our rough little convulsions. Wisconsin, we gave you both Fighting Bob La Follette and Senator Joe McCarthy,
Thank
and
you.
We gave you Russ Feingold and Paul Ryan and Scott Walker. You're welcome, everybody.
It's always good to open with politics, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. What a spectacular political season it is.
So let's go back to that song. What Else Was It from Silver Ladder? It's poetic, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I often am. I'm pretty sure it's about a serial killer housewife on the edge.
No, it's just about, the turning point in people's lives. I know that opening line is a little descriptively vivid. You took a shovel to the basement and you blistered up your hands, but I'm really just talking about the basement of the human heart, kind of the William Butler Yeats's rag and bone shop of the heart.
Where did that come from?
Oh my word. Just life, I suppose. I mean, as much as we would care to deny it, songwriters are just ordinary human beings like every other human being. We go through our go-through. We occasionally get on the rocks of our little seafaring voyage. That happens to everybody. And so I was really just speaking from that experience. It's just speaking from the sort of rapids of life or the rocks of life and how that can be a turning point. Sometimes the narrator of a song is a character who's clearly not me. And then sometimes it's a character who, from a galloping horse, is me. But I don't have a particularly strong confidence in identity as a concept anyway. I mean, I think who we are changes moment to moment. That's what I've observed. Everybody is just sort of their context. Everybody's identity is elusive enough. Let's just say that. So sometimes, yeah, when the speaker in a song is, for instance, a woman. I just wrote a tune from the perspective of a woman on a train in Greece. I've never been a woman. I've never been on a train in Greece because I've never been to Greece. So that's clearly not me, but hopefully we can just identify. That's what I'm looking for, identification and imagination.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've got a lot of CDs. Was Silver Ladder your 20th? Is that correct?
It's something like that. I think there's maybe 12 or 15 proper CDs that have Peter Mulvey as the tagline, and then there's a couple of CDs by the trio that I was in called Redbird, which was actually more of a quartet and not properly a band, but just a collective. I was in a band that put out a couple of CDs when I was quite young. I put out a duets record with David Goodrich. I've lost track, let's just say that.
But it goes back a ways. I mean, back into the 80s, certainly.
Yeah, I think the first recording I put out was in 1989, back in the time we call the 20th century, in the waning days of, the 80s.
So you and music have been at each other's necks for a long time. How do you keep the romance alive?
You know, I just saw a video performance of Ani DeFranco, and she's playing this song called Fuel that was about, being 15, 16 years old and busking in New York City and not making any money, and then wandering out into the world, which is always so much bigger than you are. Mm-hmm. And she had this great line about how she didn't know what else to do but go back to that same street corner and dig down deeper. And it really moved me because it reminded me of my damn job as an artist. That's it. That's all you can do is return to your principles, return to your beginnings, and ask yourself if you've got some other way of digging down deeper and saying something that's going to be useful to you and hopefully, therefore, useful to other people. That's it. It's a real contradiction because we have nothing more than that. But I have a feeling that if anything is going to quote unquote save us, it's going to be that. Boy, as I say it out loud, it sounds like that applies not just to artists but people. Mm-hmm. What else are you going to do? Return to yourself and see if you can dig down a little deeper, and then see if that can be useful to yourself and to the people around you.
So really that gets to the root of your whole relentless touring and learning and communicating with people, partnering with people.
Yeah, I got really lucky when I found something that I was relatively good at, and I felt like it was useful to other people. It was certainly useful to me. And it was a strong enough connection that it got me past a lot of the natural, immature reactions. When you're young, you figure you're important. You're not, and you figure that you've got enormous vistas ahead of you, and you do, but not like you think you do. All of that. I survived all of those things, I think, just by loving the work and by seeing day after day that it was useful to people. I still love applause. I'm a primate. Primates like approval from their fellow primates. But the real reason I do this job is because every couple of shows, someone will come up to me and just say, your song X or your record X got me through situation Y or situation Z, or just made, situation N slightly more vivid for me. It doesn't even have to be getting somebody through something troublesome. Just your music can be part of a road trip mm-hmm. and have made that a deeper experience for another one of your fellow humans. That's lucky living.
Sometimes it touches people in important places like the Confederate flag. You hit a home run with that.
Oh, that was really something. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually an example of what I'm talking about. I think after the shooting in Charleston, especially in the context of the past couple of years with everybody from Trayvon Martin to Tamir Rice, John Crawford, Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, on, and in the middle of that difficult year, the massacre in a church, and that church of all churches, I think it left so many people feeling helpless. I felt helpless. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote that song really just because I couldn't stand it. I felt like I had to say something. Then friends of mine started to write their own verses, and I think it's over 200 people have now written verses of that song, and it's been viewed hundreds of thousands of times out on the internet, and my friend Ani DeFranco sang it, my friend Aeneas Mitchell from Vermont sang it, and much more to the point, we also were able to raise some money. I was doing my taxes just this week and got reminded of the fact that a whole bunch of people got together and sent another few $1,000s down to the Emmanuel Church, down to their community, which is a drop in the bucket for what they're going to need. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, now that you bring it up, the song is called Take Down Your Flag, and it seemed, a few months later, the song seemed somewhat dated, because they did take down the flag that flew over the State House in Columbia, in South Carolina. But, there's no delicate way to say this. I watch the footage of those rallies that guy is holding, that orange-haired dude whose name shall not be mentioned.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of hatred, and there's a lot of flying of a flag that, as near as I can tell, and I mean this sort of symbolically, is meant to beat other people down and to make other people feel scared so they'll stay in their place. And I'm thinking, boy, I need to write about that flag. We all need to write about that flag. We need to repudiate that stuff, and we need to repudiate that stuff now, because we've seen where this goes.
And we're hitting on some heavy subjects for people who haven't seen you perform before. You're not a preacher. I mean, you're not hitting people over the head with this stuff. It's important, clearly.
No, boy, you're right. I mean, I can definitely be drawn into a conversation like this, but mercifully, in my shows, it's about 85% songs and then about 10% jokes. I mean, see, now here's the other thing, and that's why I'm not a politician and I'm not a preacher, because I feel like the art should just speak for itself. Like, of course I believe in compassion, and of course I believe in union and in unity and in imagination and in empathy, but those are just sentences. Hopefully the art actually represents it. If the art is beautiful itself, then hopefully it connects you to the way the world is beautiful, and none of this stuff needs to be said, because you're right. I get into the heavy topics when in conversation, and I prefer to be implicit in shows rather than explicit about that stuff.
Do you have a new record that's going to be coming out sometime?
Yeah, beginning of this year, I went down to New Orleans and made a record in Ani DeFranco's house. She was in the role of producer, and we had her rhythm section, the great Terrence Higgins and the great upright bass player Todd Sikafus, and then a young woman from Oregon named Anna Tivell playing violin and singing. And Ani was amazing, man. She's my superhero now. That was an amazing job of producing. Mostly what she did was listen. She just sat there with us and sort of drew performances out of us. That was amazing. And now she's been going to work and doing overdubs and adding her vocals. I'm really excited, but I don't really know when the record's going to come out. Sometime this year, hopefully, or early next year. I can't wait. I've worked with a lot of really good producers. I've worked with Chuck Prophet on the last record, and I worked with Nick Sansano, who's a great hip-hop producer. I worked with David Goodrich on a bunch of records, and they're all great. I think she had the most emphatic I'm listening stance that I've ever seen. And all she was doing was sitting on a chair with headphones on, so that she was sort of in the same mental space as the rest of us. But we could all just feel that. I don't know how else to describe it without verging into mysticism, but it's impressive.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Tell me about the book, Vlad the Astrophysicist.
Yeah, so I met an astrophysicist, and I asked him if there were intelligent civilizations out there other than ours. He gave me a cogent, concise answer, and I turned it into a spoken word piece that had a life on a record I made in 2009 called Letters from a Flying Machine. And then someone put a video of it up on YouTube, I don't know who, and it got onto a science thread on Reddit and got viewed by hundreds of thousands of humans. And then TEDx Kansas City asked me to perform it as a TED Talk, so I did that, and it had its life there. And now there's a publishing company called Blooming Twig that's going to be putting it out as a book with artwork by the great Peter Nevins. If any of you are Anais Mitchell fans, Peter Nevins has done the artwork for a lot of her records for a long time. He's just a wonderful woodcut and linocut artist, and I'm really excited to have him on this project. So that, I think we're launching that project in the next month or so, and then the book should be out this summertime. And I'm hoping it gets taught in schools. That's where I hope that goes.
That must have somehow been connected to the National Youth Science Camp gig that you do every year.
Yeah, I've played the National Youth Science Camp for 10 or 12 years. It's a summer camp for the top 2 science high school seniors from each state in America, and it takes place every July 4th, thereabouts, for a couple of weeks in West Virginia. And that's where I met Vlad. I met him as a lecturer, and I'm hired there to be a musician. I play music for them in a cave, which is just about my favorite gig of the year, every year, because when else are you playing in a giant underground cavern in front of 100-some geniuses? It rarely happens to most people.
So that makes you about art and science and youth.
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope so. who was it? It was the great saxophone player Wayne Shorter who said, "The more you know, the more beautiful the world is." And to me, I'm a fairly voracious reader, and I love stories, and I'm always looking for a good story. And so I always loved Joseph Campbell and there are a bunch of other writers who are pointing out that the physicists and the poets and the philosophers all begin to sound like each other when they really get to the top of their game. I mean, Einstein said, "I don't believe God plays dice with the universe." That's a beautiful thing for anyone to say. And I feel like that could easily have been said by the Persian poet Rumi. So this is the stock and trade of my life.
Bicycle or Bukowski, who wins?
Bicycle. I mean, I love Bukowski, but boy, Bukowski could have used a bicycle. Am I right? Everyone in this world, Tom Waits could, the greatest writer in the world, could probably use to just stand up from the desk, stop writing. It's beautiful. Go for a bike ride, dude.
Do you like the Recumbent, or do you like being normal?
I'm a dedicated nerd. I'm on the Recumbent. I mean, nothing is more fun than just being on a cruiser bike in a safe place, going along through a fair somewhere. That's, I've ridden cruiser bikes through street festivals, and that's delightful. But if you have to get somewhere, I do a tour by bicycle just about every autumn. And if you have to get somewhere, if you have to ride 100 miles from just before dawn until sound check at 5, for my money, a Recumbent's the best way to do it because it's a lot less wear and tear on the body.
It's a hell of a warm-up for a show.
I know. Oh, I know.
We had Matt Lorenz. He's one of your buddies on a while back. And you guys shared a near-death experience in a car, as I understand it.
Yes. Yeah, we sure did. We were writing a song called "Remember the Milkman," and we were on the I don't know, whatever it was, 805, coming over the mountains from Santa Cruz, heading up towards San Francisco, and 5 lanes of traffic moving 70 miles an hour, and then we were in the left lane, everyone moving along, and a Toyota Camry lost control in the right lane and spun miraculously through all 5 lanes without hitting anybody. And Matt had just looked down to write a lyric in the notebook from the song we were writing, and he swears that what I said was, "Oh dear." So, with that kind of understatement, he looked up, probably expecting to see some pelicans, and saw, our impending doom, cars scattering like starlings. It was a bad situation, but we managed to stop about 15 feet shy of that Camry. It actually wound up stopped in our lane, sideways with the trunk against the median, and whoo, yeah, I think that's probably my favorite song that I've ever written, simply because I didn't die halfway through writing it.
For a change.
Yeah, exactly.
What other people are you liking these days? You're a big supporter of other musicians.
Yeah, I like them. They're my tribe, and I like them. So, and that's why I run a little festival down at Club Passim in Boston, in Cambridge, called the Lamplighter Festival every year to showcase new talent and my mentors. I mean, I'm kind of into whoever's still sort of standing up and knocking them over the wall, or whoever stepped up. There's a young guy in Boston named Dietrich Strauss. That guy's amazing. My pal Anna Tivol, who played violin and sang on my most recent record, she's got a new record that'll be out, I believe, in the spring, that is just so writerly and wonderful and poetic. And my old pals Jeff Folkalt and Chris Delmhorst, they both just put out about the best work of their life. I never really get tired of it because the job is never over. When I listen to Tom Waits, I'm as happy listening to Bad As Me, to his most recent record. Or if I'm going to listen to, Paul Simon, I'm going to listen to So Beautiful or So What, his most recent record. If I'm going to get a book by Seamus Heaney, I want to get his latest book. I feel like anyone who is up and after it should always be a little bit better than they were. That's the beauty of this job, too. I mean, if you're a fastball pitcher, you're not going to be better in your 50s than you were in your 40s. But if you're a writer, you can just get better. All you have to do is, that thing Ani DeFranco was talking about, return to your street corner and dig down deep.
Mm-hmm. What else should we touch on?
I mean, you've plumbed everything interesting that's going on in my career, for which I thank you. What else should we talk about? You know what? Let's return to politics. Are you feeling the burn?
Well, this is Vermont. It's required.
Yeah.
He's important. What he's talking about is important. I hope he gets the nomination. If he doesn't, at least he's pushed things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the end, over on that side of the spectrum, we have different versions of we are all in this together. And then if you look over on the other side of the spectrum, it really seems to be different versions of we're the good guys and we're going to punish the bad guys. And I don't want to live by that. I don't subscribe to we're the good guys and we're going to punish the bad guys. I subscribe to we are all in this together. Even if someone has done me some damage, it doesn't change the fact that we are all in this together. Mm-hmm. I guess that's where my heart leans. And so at this moment, when I look at our political landscape, it seems pretty easy to decide which of those things squares with the way I see the world. I mean, the weird part about this is, does this make me someone else's bad guy? Like, am I supposed to be punished? Because I look at the people at a Trump rally, and I don't want to punish them. I just see that they're seriously upset. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe they need a hug and a timeout, put their head down on the desk, or a cup of hot cocoa, or to stop being flippant for a moment. Maybe someone needs to just listen to them and say, are you okay? Are mm-hmm. you all right? Because you seem really upset. Can I help you? I certainly don't see Trump saying that to him. I think he's just whipping him up.
The polarization that we're seeing in politics and society is destructive, terribly destructive.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I don't want to be somebody's bad guy, and I don't want to make... going back to that flag song, I think one of the most moving verses anyone wrote to take down your flag was my pal Vance Gilbert. When people started turning in versions, I emailed him about 1:30 in the morning because I didn't want to text him or call him because it was 1:30 in the morning, but he emailed me right back. And I remember thinking, of course, he is up at 1:30 this morning. He's a black man in America. Mm. I wouldn't be able to sleep either. I guess I wasn't able to sleep as a white man in America that night. Yeah. But, I said, hey, listen, people are writing verses. And he sent me a 2-word email. He said, on it. And then at 4 in the morning, he sent back his verse, and it was a verse for Dylan Roof. Mm-hmm. And the line that'll always stick with me was when he said, imagine spending just 1 second in that man's head. And that's, I wrote back to him and I said, Vance, that's some Olympic level forgiveness. And he said, it's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is a process. That was just a verse in a song. I don't know. I've rarely been that impressed by the human heart. There it is. Even someone that hateful, what are you going to do but try to have some sympathy? You may not succeed, but you've got to try. Whew.
You mentioned opening for Billy Bragg. He said 7 words that are always going to stick with me, just like you were talking about the words that are sticking with you. He said, I want to live in a compassionate society.
Yep.
Bang.
There. Yes. That is so useful. It sets you in motion. I want to live in a compassionate society. And if you were lucky enough to have pretty decent parents, you'll hear their voices going, well, then what are you going to do?
We're going to go out with Lies You Forgot You Told. It's also from the Silver Ladder CD. Is this also from the serial killer housewife milieu?
I don't even know what that song is necessarily about. I was that week writing 1 song a week. I mean, I wrote that song in about 22 minutes. Grab a groove and then start speaking from some sort of vantage point. I always liked it because it felt as close as I'm going to come to the sort of, how am I going to put this, the sort of wizened swagger that goes along with Leonard Cohen,
sure,
mixed with, hopefully the grooviness of Carole King. That's what I was shooting for. That's all I got.
I'm plowing it right back into the politics. I'm a fool for believing the lies you forgot you told. And
oh, yeah. What a season.
Peter Mulvey, he's going to be back at the Wyndham Ballroom Friday, March 11th with Pamela Means. Doors at 8, show at 8:30. Tickets and more information online at popolomeanspeople.com. Or if you're in town, just pop in when they're open. They'll help you out. You got any parting shots?
Only that I'm really excited to play with Pamela. She's a dear friend. She's a great musician, and she is way funnier than I am. So that's always useful.
That's saying something because you're a good time.
Oh, thanks.
Looking forward to seeing you biking into the show.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing you, too.
All right. Bye-bye.
I gave you fruit from the desert, a pocket full